A millionaire CEO's car broke down on a lonely mountain road, only to be fixed by a single dad who happened to be her first love from 15 years ago. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The October sun was bleeding orange across the North Carolina mountains when Jenna Cross felt her $60,000 Audi sputter and die. The engine coughed. Once, twice, then nothing. Complete silence except for the wind whistling through the pines. "No, not here," she whispered, gripping the steering wheel as the car coasted to a stop on the narrow shoulder. She tried the ignition again. Click. Nothing. Her phone showed exactly what she feared. No signal. Not even one bar. She was 17 miles outside Asheville, on a winding mountain road she had chosen specifically because it was quiet, peaceful, away from everything, away from board meetings and acquisition proposals, and the suffocating weight of being 34 and having everything except the one thing that mattered. 3 cars had already passed, each one slowing slightly, then speeding up when they saw her designer clothes and expensive car. Maybe they thought it was a trap. Maybe they just didn't want to get involved. Jenna stood beside her car now, watching another set of headlights approaching in the dimming light. This time, she stepped forward and waved both arms above her head. Desperate. No pride left. The car, a beat-up Honda CR-V that had seen better days, actually began to slow. Inside the Honda, Julian Hayes was losing an argument with a 9-year-old child. "But Dad, you promised ice cream after practice." "I know, sweetheart. This will just take a minute. Someone needs help." "What if she's a serial killer?" Julian glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "Piper, serial killers don't usually drive Audis." "How do you know? Maybe rich serial killers do."
Despite everything, Julian smiled. 3 years since Loretta had left, and Piper had developed his same defensive humor. He wasn't sure if that was a victory or a failure of parenting. He pulled over 20 feet ahead of the stranded car and cut the engine. "Stay here. Lock the doors if you feel scared." "Dad, I'm 9, not 5. The woman hurried toward him before he'd even fully stepped out, and Julian caught the mix of relief and embarrassment on her face. She was about his age, maybe younger, with blonde hair escaping from what had probably been a perfect ponytail hours ago. "Thank goodness someone stopped," she said, slightly breathless. "I know this is asking a lot, but my car just died and I can't get any phone signal. I was wondering if you might know anything about cars, or if I could use your phone to call for help." Her voice shook on the last words. Not dramatically, but enough that Julian noticed. He'd heard that particular tremor before, in his own voice, the night Loretta had said she couldn't do this anymore, that being a mother was drowning her, that she loved Piper, but love wasn't enough. "Let me take a look," Julian offered. "I'm not a mechanic, but I know the basics." "Really? That would be amazing. Thank you so much." As he walked toward the Audi, she felt his eyes on him, intense, studying, like she was trying to memorize something. Jenna's heart was slamming against her ribs so hard she was sure he could hear it. Julian Hayes. After 15 years of wondering what happened to him, here he was, kneeling beside her car, his hands checking connections with the same quiet competence she remembered from college. His hair was shorter now, a few early silver threads catching the fading light, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there at 20. But the way he moved, the careful attention he paid to everything, that was exactly the same. He didn't remember her. She could see it in his face when he looked at her. Polite interest, nothing more. No recognition. Of course he didn't remember. They'd only spoken twice at East Carolina University, and he probably helped dozens of people back then. That's just who he was.
"Try starting it," he called out. Jenna slid into the driver's seat, her hands shaking as she turned the key. The engine turned over weakly, but didn't catch. Through the windshield, she watched him work, and the memories flooded back. The first time she'd really noticed Julian Hayes, she'd been cornered outside the library by 3 drunk guys from her dormitory, 19 years old, second month of college, terrified but trying not to show it. They were blocking her path, making comments about her body, getting closer. Then Julian had appeared, not aggressively, not looking for a fight. He just walked up and said, "Hey, Sarah, there you are. Professor's looking for you about that study group." She wasn't Sarah. There was no study group, but the guys had backed off when Julian put himself between them and her, and she'd escaped into the library while he dealt with their drunk anger. She tried to thank him the next day, but he just shrugged and said, nobody should have to deal with that, and walked away before she could even tell him her name. The second time was 2 weeks later, torrential rain, the kind that turns sidewalks into rivers. She'd been standing under the tiny overhang of the mathematics building, watching the rain and realizing she had a 2-hour lab to get to across campus. No umbrella, no raincoat. Julian had jogged by, stopped, jogged back. "You're stuck?" he'd asked. "It's fine. I'll wait it out." "It's supposed to rain for 3 more hours." He'd handed her his umbrella, a big golf umbrella with the ECU logo. "Take it." "But you'll get soaked." "I'm just going to my car. You need it more." And he'd run off into the rain before she could protest, getting drenched in seconds. She'd kept that umbrella, still had it actually, in her apartment in Charlotte. After that, she'd noticed him everywhere. In her economics lecture, always third row, always engaged. At the campus coffee shop, helping younger students with homework. At parties, making sure drunk girls got back to their dorms safely. Then came that photo at Jake Morrison's party. Him with his arm around her shoulders for 30 seconds, both laughing at something off camera. The culmination of a crush that had been building all semester.
Okay, try again. This time, the Audi purred to life. Julian stepped back as the woman got out of the car. Her face had changed. The relief was there, but something else too. She was looking at him like she was seeing a ghost. "That's incredible," she said softly. "You just fixed it." "Just a loose battery terminal. Happens sometimes on these mountain roads." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "You should probably have a mechanic check it properly, though." "I will, absolutely." She was staring now, really staring, the kind of look that made Julian acutely aware of his faded work shirt and the grass stains on his jeans from Piper's soccer practice. "I can't thank you enough. Please, let me pay you for your time." "No need. Just glad I could help." "At least let me give you my card." She reached into her car and pulled out a business card holder. Silver, expensive. Everything about her screamed money, success, a life lived in different zip codes than his. She reached into her car. Jenna Cross, CEO, Summit Innovations, Charlotte, NC. CEO. Of course, that explained everything. The car, the clothes, the careful way she held herself like she was used to people watching. Jenna Cross. Impressive title. "I've been fortunate." Her voice cracked slightly on the word. "And you are?" "Julian Hayes, landscape architect," he said as he handed her his card. "Nothing as impressive as being a CEO." She repeated his name like she was tasting it. Julian Hayes. Something flickered across her face. Pain, recognition, longing, all mixed together. But before Julian could process it, she was composing herself again. "Thank you, Julian. You have no idea what this means to me." It seemed like an overreaction to a 5-minute car fix, but Julian just nodded. "No problem. Drive safe." He turned back toward his Honda, where Piper was watching through the window with undisguised curiosity.
Jenna watched him walk away. Watched him get into his beat-up Honda with a child in the front seat. A daughter. Had to be, with the same thoughtful eyes. Watched him pull away without looking back. Her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the guardrail, pressing her palms against her eyes. She'd come to Asheville to clear her head. 3 days away from the Charlotte office, from the board breathing down her neck about the next acquisition, from the endless parade of men her friends kept trying to set her up with. "You're 34, Jenna. You can't wait forever." But she'd been waiting. Waiting for something she couldn't even name. A feeling she'd had once in college for a boy who gave her his umbrella in the rain. She'd lost track of Julian completely after he dropped out. No social media, no LinkedIn, nothing. Like he'd vanished from the earth. She'd wondered 1,000 times what happened to him, where life had taken him, if he ever thought about the girl whose name he never even knew he'd saved. And then her car had broken down, and Julian Hayes had stopped to help and suddenly
15 years collapsed into nothing. He had a daughter. No wedding ring, though. That didn't mean anything. The careful way he'd looked back at the car, checking on the child. He was a good father. She could see it in every movement. The same protectiveness he'd shown a scared 19-year-old outside a library. "She seemed nice," said Piper as they continued toward town. "Yeah, she did. And pretty." Julian glanced in the rearview mirror. "I hadn't noticed." "Liar. You totally noticed. You get that weird face you get when you think someone's pretty." "I don't have a weird face." "You do. It's like this." Piper scrunched up her features in an exaggerated expression that looked like nothing any human had ever done. "That's disturbing, Pipe."
"So, are we still getting ice cream?" "Yes, we're still getting ice cream." They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the mountain road winding toward town. Julian's mind kept drifting back to the woman, Jenna, the way she'd looked at him, the way her voice had broken when she'd said his name. "Dad?" "Yeah? Do you think Mom would care if you dated someone?" The question came out of nowhere, the way Piper's hard questions always did. Julian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I don't know, sweetheart. Why are you asking?" "Megan's mom has a boyfriend now. She says it's weird, but also kind of nice, because he makes her mom laugh." Piper paused. "You don't laugh much anymore." The words sat heavy in the car. 3 years since Loretta had left for Denver, since she'd explained that she loved Piper, but couldn't be the mother Piper deserved, since she'd chosen her own mental health over their family. Julian didn't blame her, not anymore, but Piper's observation stung because it was true. When was the last time he'd really laughed? Not the polite chuckles at work or the forced humor when Piper's friends' parents made small talk. Real laughter, the kind that came from somewhere deep. "I laugh," he said weakly. "Dad jokes don't count." "Dad jokes absolutely count." 4 days later, Julian was reviewing blueprints for a downtown commercial project when Beth from reception knocked on his office door. "Julian, there's a delivery for you." He looked up from his computer, confused. "A delivery?" Beth stepped aside, and a delivery person walked in carrying an arrangement of flowers that had to have cost more than Julian's weekly grocery budget. Roses? But not just roses. Exotic flowers he couldn't even name, arranged with an artist's eye. "Julian Hayes?" That's me." They set the arrangement on his desk and left. The entire office had gone quiet, everyone prairie-dogging over their cubicle walls to stare. Beth whistled low. "Someone's got an admirer." Julian found the card nestled among the flowers. The handwriting was elegant, feminine. "Thank you again for your kindness. If you're ever in Charlotte, coffee is on me."
"Who's Jenna?" Beth asked, reading over his shoulder with zero shame. "Just someone whose car I helped fix on the highway last week. And she sent you flowers that probably cost $300? Beth picked up the business card that had fallen from the arrangement. "Oh my God, Julian! Jenna Cross? The Jenna Cross? CEO of Summit Innovations? She's worth like $50 million. You know her?" "Know her? She was on the cover of Forbes last month. The woman revolutionizing data analytics. She's worth like $50 million. Julian stared at the flowers. $50 million? The number didn't even seem real. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I hope the flowers aren't too much. I wanted to say thank you properly. Jenna." Julian looked at the message for a long moment. He could ignore it. Should ignore it. What did a single dad who shopped at Target have in common with a millionaire CEO? But he remembered her face, the vulnerability beneath the polish, the way her hands had shaken. Something about her had seemed so familiar, though he couldn't place it. "They're beautiful, but totally unnecessary. You already thanked me." Her response came quickly. "I found that people rarely get thanked enough for kindness. How's your daughter? Did she ever get that ice cream?" Julian blinked. He'd never mentioned ice cream. But then he remembered Piper had been vocal about it from the car. Jenna must have heard. "Eventually, after she guilt-tripped me about stopping to help you first." "Smart girl. I hope I didn't mess up your evening too much." "Not at all. She decided you were probably not a serial killer, so that was good." "Probably not? I'm hurt. I'm definitely not a serial killer." "That's exactly what a serial killer would say." There was a pause. Then, "Fair point. Listen, I know this is forward, but I'm in Asheville surprisingly often for work. Would you let me buy you that coffee as a proper thank you? Julian stared at his phone. Every logical part of his brain screamed that this was a bad idea. Different worlds, different lives. He had Piper to think about, but there was something pulling at him, a feeling he couldn't name. Coffee sounds nice. Let me know when you're in town.
Jenna read his response 3 times, her heart doing something ridiculous in her chest. She was in her Charlotte office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and suddenly, none of it mattered. She pulled open her desk drawer and took out 2 things she'd kept for 15 years. First, the photo from Jake Morrison's party. Faded now, edges soft from handling. 20-year-old Julian laughing at something off camera, his arm casual around her shoulders. She'd been 19, overwhelmed by his proximity, trying not to show how much that casual touch meant. Second, the umbrella. Black with the purple ECU logo, one spoke slightly bent from years of use. She'd never used it, couldn't bear to, but she'd kept it through every move, every life change. The week after he'd given her that umbrella, she'd finally worked up the courage. She was going to thank him properly, maybe ask him to coffee. But that was the day Julian had told his friends he was dropping out. His mother had been diagnosed with ALS. He needed to go home, take care of her, be the son she needed. She'd watched him leave the lecture hall for the last time, her carefully rehearsed words dying in her throat. By the next week, he was gone. No forwarding information, no social media presence, nothing. For 15 years, she'd wondered. Built her company, made her fortune, but always wondered about the boy who'd saved her from bullies, who'd given her his umbrella without a second thought, who'd put his arm around her at a party and made her feel, for 30 seconds, like she belonged. And now he was here, in Asheville, and landscape architect with a daughter and tired eyes and the same instinct to help strangers. She looked at the umbrella one more time, then put it away. Some secrets weren't ready to be told. 2 weeks later, they met at a cafe downtown. Julian arrived 5 minutes early and spent the entire time second-guessing his outfit choice. Jeans and a button-down seemed safe, but maybe too casual? Maybe she expected... Julian? He turned. Jenna stood behind him, and for a second he forgot how to breathe. Not because she looked like a millionaire CEO. She didn't. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair down and catching the afternoon light. She looked normal. Beautiful, but normal. And somehow familiar. Something about her eyes.
"Hi," he said, standing awkwardly. "You found it okay? Google Maps is a miracle of modern technology." She smiled, but he caught the nervousness underneath. "Should we—" They ordered, coffee for him, tea for her, and found a corner table. For a moment, neither spoke. "This is weird, right? This is weird. Sending $300 of flowers to someone who fixed your car for 5 minutes? Little bit weird." She laughed, and the sound pulled at something in Julian's memory. "In my defense, you also refused payment." "In my defense, it was literally tightening one bolt. A bolt I couldn't have tightened, hence the flowers." They fell into conversation easier than Julian expected. She asked about his work, actually listened when he explained the different challenges of residential versus commercial landscaping. She laughed at his terrible jokes. She asked about Piper with what seemed like genuine interest. 9 is such a great age. Old enough to have real conversations, young enough to still think their parents know everything. "Piper hasn't thought I knew everything since she was 6, Julian admitted. "These days, she mostly thinks I'm an idiot who can't remember to charge his phone." "You forget to charge your phone?" "Constantly. Drives her crazy. Last week, I missed recording her soccer goal because it was dead." The familiar guilt settled in his stomach. Parent of the year, right here. Jenna's expression softened. "You showed up. That's what matters. You sound like you have experience with this stuff." "No kids of my own, but I had a dad who never missed a swim meet, even when he was working 3 jobs. He died when I was in college. Heart attack at 48. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Actually, it was right around the time..." She stopped. "Around the time what?"
Nothing, just it was a hard period. Dad dying, other things changing. You know how college is.
Julian studied her face. There was something she wasn't saying, but he didn't push. Everyone had their secrets. "Tell me about Piper," she said, changing the subject. "What's she like?" So Julian told her about Piper's obsession with photography, her fierce protection of kids who got picked on, her elaborate schemes to get him to agree to a dog. He told her about the hard parts, too, the Mother's Day cards Piper made but had no one to give to, the questions about why Loretta had to leave, the way she sometimes went quiet and he knew she was processing something too big for 9 years old. "You're a good dad," Jenna said softly. "I'm trying. That's all any of us can do." When they parted ways 2 hours later, Jenna hesitated. "Same time next week?" Julian knew he should say no. Knew this was complicated and messy and probably knowing nowhere good. "I'd like that," he said instead. It became their routine. Every Tuesday afternoon, they'd meet at the same cafe. Jenna would drive 2 hours from Charlotte, always arriving exactly on time, always with that mix of nervousness and excitement. By their 4th meeting, Julian had stopped questioning it. By their 6th, he brought Piper. "Piper, this is my friend Jenna. Jenna, this is Piper." Piper studied Jenna with those 2 smart eyes. "You're the car lady." "That's me. The woman whose car your dad heroically saved." "He just tightened something. He fixes stuff all the time." Piper paused. "You sent really nice flowers." "Too nice?" "Mom says..." Loretta, I mean, she says that when someone does something too nice, they usually want something." Julian felt his face burn. "Piper..." "It's okay," Jenna said calmly. "That's actually pretty good advice, but sometimes people do nice things just because they want to, no agenda." Piper considered this. "Do you have kids?" "No." "Do you want kids?" "Piper, I'd like to, someday, with the right person." "My dad's single." Julian wanted the floor to open and swallow him whole. "Okay, Pipe, that's enough interrogation for today." But Jenna was laughing, really laughing. "Good to know."
3 months into their Tuesday meetings, everything changed. They were walking through the botanical gardens, Julian's favorite place in Asheville. He'd finally gotten comfortable enough to suggest somewhere other than the cafe. Piper was ahead of them, taking pictures with Jenna's expensive camera that Jenna had casually handed over like it wasn't worth more than Julian's monthly salary. "She has a good eye," Jenna said, watching Piper frame a shot of light through leaves. "She gets that from her mom. Loretta was always the artistic one." It was the first time he'd mentioned his ex-wife by name, without the usual twist of pain. "Do you mind if I ask what happened?" Jenna said carefully. Julian was quiet for a moment, watching his daughter explore. She tried. For 6 years, she really tried. But being a mother was killing her. Not dramatically, just slowly, like drowning in inches of water. The day she left, she said she loved Piper, but that love wasn't enough. She needed to save herself before she destroyed all of us. That must have been devastating. It was. But also, Julian paused. It was also a relief to stop pretending. She's better now, in Denver. She's in therapy, has a job she loves. She sends Piper postcards. And Piper? Piper's angry, hurt, confused, but also okay mostly. Kids are resilient. He looked at Jenna. "What about you? Ever been married?" "Engaged once. To a perfectly nice investment banker who looked perfect on paper." She smiled ruefully. "I called it off 3 weeks before the wedding." "What happened?" "I realized I was marrying him because it's what I was supposed to do. But I didn't love him. Not the way..." She trailed off. "The way what?" Jenna stopped walking and turned to face him. "Can I tell you something? Something that's probably going to sound completely insane?" Julian felt the air shift between them. "Okay." She pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then handed it to him. "Do you remember this?" The photo on the screen was old, slightly pixelated, a group of college students at what looked like a house party. In the center, a young man with his arm around a young woman's shoulders, both laughing at something off camera. Julian stared at the photo. The man looked familiar, but is that me? He looked closer. That's me, at ECU. He studied the woman. Long blonde hair, bright eyes, a smile that was somehow both confident and shy. Something tugged at his memory. Those eyes. Is that me? 15 years ago. November 3rd, to be exact. A party at Jake Morrison's apartment off campus. The memories came flooding back. Jake Morrison, the party, and before that, oh my God, you're the girl from the library, the one those guys were harassing. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. You remember? I called you Sarah, pretended to know you to get them to back off. More memories surfaced. And the umbrella, the rainstorm. You were stuck outside the math building. You gave me your umbrella and ran into the rain. I never even knew your name. I tried to tell you, tried to thank you properly, but you were always rushing off to class or work, and I was too shy to chase after you. Jenna wiped her eyes. That photo was taken 2 weeks before you dropped out. I'd finally worked up the courage to really talk to you, to tell you how much those moments meant. But then, my mom got sick. And you were gone. No forwarding address, no social media, nothing. I looked for you for years, Julian. Not in a creepy way, just wondering what happened to the boy who saved me, without even knowing my name. Julian felt like the ground had tilted. You've remembered me for 15 years? You showed me kindness when I needed it most. Twice. Without wanting anything in return, without even sticking around for a thank you. She pulled something from her bag, a folded piece of paper, handed it to him with shaking hands. It was a printout of an email draft dated 3 weeks after he had left ECU. Dear Julian, I know you don't know me, not really, but you saved me twice this semester, and I never got to say thank you. I hope your mom gets better. I hope life is kind to you. I hope someday I can return the favor. The girl you called Sarah. I never sent it, Jenna said. I didn't have your email, but I kept it, rewrote it 100 times over the years. And when your car broke down, pure coincidence, I came to Asheville to clear my head. I'd been driving these mountain roads for 3 days, trying to escape the pressure of my life. Then my car died, and you stopped, and I couldn't believe it was you. She laughed through her tears. 15 years later, and you were the same person, still helping strangers. Julian looked at this woman, brilliant, successful, beautiful, who'd held on to the memory of 2 small kindnesses for 15 years, who'd spent 3 months getting to know him without revealing any of this. Why didn't you tell me right away? Because what if you thought I was crazy? What if this whole thing was just some pathetic fantasy? What if the real you was nothing like the person I'd built up in my head? She met his eyes. But you're not. You're exactly the same, kinder even. The way you are with Piper, the way you see the world. Julian, you have no idea how rare you are. Julian thought about the last 3 months, the easy conversations, the way she'd fit into his and Piper's life, the way Tuesday had become the day he looked forward to most, the familiar feeling he'd had since that first coffee. Now he understood why. I should probably be freaked out by this, he said finally. Are you? No, I'm honored, I guess, that you remembered, that those small moments meant something. They meant everything. You showed a scared 19-year-old that there were still good people in the world.
Dad, Miss Jenna! Piper came running back with the camera. I took the most amazing picture of a butterfly. You have to see. She showed them the photo, a monarch, wings spread, caught in perfect light. That's beautiful, Pipe, Julian said. Can we print it? I want to put it on my wall. Of course, Jenna said. I'll have it printed professionally if you want. Really? Piper's eyes went wide. Then, are you guys dating now? Julian choked on air. Piper. Because Megan says when adults go on walks in gardens and look at each other the way you're looking at each other, that means they're dating. Jenna knelt down to Piper's level. How would you feel about that, if your dad and I were dating? Piper considered this seriously. Would you be around more? If you wanted me to be. Would you still let me use your camera? Absolutely. Would you try to be my mom? The question hung in the air. Julian saw Jenna choose her words carefully.
No. You have a mom. I'd just try to be your friend. Maybe your really good friend, if you'd let me. Piper nodded slowly. I think that would be okay. She paused. Plus, Dad smiles more when you're around. With that pronouncement, she ran off again. From the mouths of babes, Jenna said softly. She's not wrong, Julian admitted, about the smiling. So, what happens now? Julian took her hand. Now we make new memories, better than old photographs and lost umbrellas. Even though I'm a slightly obsessive CEO who kept your picture for 15 years, even though I'm a single dad who didn't even remember your name, you called me Sarah, she laughed. I panicked. It was the first name I thought of. They stood there, hands clasped, 15 years of separation dissolving in the afternoon light. This is probably a terrible idea, Jenna said. The worst, Julian agreed. Want to do it anyway? Absolutely.
6 months later, Julian stood in his kitchen, making Saturday morning pancakes while Piper and Jenna sat at the table, heads bent together over Jenna's laptop. See if you adjust the exposure here, Jenna was saying, showing Piper something in the photo editing software. Oh, that's so much better, Piper bounced in her seat. Can we do the one from the butterfly garden next? Julian smiled, flipping a pancake. 6 months of Jenna driving from Charlotte every weekend. 6 months of Tuesday coffees, turning into Friday dinners, turning into Saturday mornings like this. 6 months of watching his daughter bloom under Jenna's quiet attention. His phone buzzed on the counter. Dad, battery warning. Dad, your phone's dying again, Piper said without looking up. Julian, you're hopeless, Jenna laughed, but she was already pulling a charger from her bag. In my defense, you have no defense, both Jenna and Piper said in unison, then laughed. Julian watched them, these two people who'd become his world. He thought about young Jenna, too shy to chase after him with a thank you, about the teenage girl who'd kept an umbrella and a photo for 15 years, about the woman who'd driven 2 hours every week just to have coffee with him. Hey, Jenna. She looked up. Yeah? I still have something of yours. What do you mean? Julian went to the hallway closet and pulled out an old box from the top shelf. Inside, among college textbooks and old papers, was a purple ECU umbrella, carefully preserved. You kept it? Jenna gasped. Found it when I was packing to leave school. I always wondered who I'd lend it to. Figured if I kept it, maybe someday they'd find me and ask for it back. Jenna stood, tears streaming down her face. Julian Hayes, are you saying you kept my umbrella too for 15 years? Technically, it was my umbrella that I gave to you. Semantics. You two are weird, Piper announced, but she was smiling. Julian pulled Jenna close. Maybe we're just two people who knew, even then, that some things are worth holding on to. Even if we didn't know why, Jenna agreed. Even if it took 15 years to figure it out. Later that evening, after Piper was in bed, they sat on the porch, the old umbrella between them like a bridge across time. I have something to tell you, Jenna said. Okay. I'm opening an Asheville office. I'm moving here. Julian turned to stare at her. You're what? I'm tired of driving 2 hours for coffee. I'm tired of missing Piper's soccer games. I'm tired of pretending my life is in Charlotte when my heart is here. Jenna, I've spent 15 years waiting for my life to really begin. I'm done waiting. Julian kissed her then, really kissed her, with 15 years of missed opportunities dissolving between them. 1 year later, Julian stood in the botanical gardens, in the exact spot where Jenna had shown him the photo. Piper stood beside him, holding a small ring box and practically vibrating with excitement. She's coming, Piper whisper-shouted. Dad, she's coming! I see her, Pipe. Calm down. I can't calm down. This is the most exciting thing ever! Jenna approached, laughing at something on her phone, unaware of what waited for her. She wore jeans and the same gray sweater from their first coffee date. Julian had asked her to, though he wouldn't say why. Sorry I'm late, she said, kissing Julian's cheek. Conference call ran over, and why are you both looking at me like that? Miss Jenna, Piper said formally, my dad has something to ask you. Julian got down on one knee, and Jenna's hands flew to her mouth.
Jenna Cross, he began. 15 years ago, I gave you an umbrella without knowing your name. Today, I want to give you my name, my life, my everything. Julian, you waited 15 years to say hello. I'm hoping you won't have to wait any time at all to say yes. He opened the ring box. Simple, elegant, perfect. Just like the moment that had brought them together. Yes, Jenna whispered, then louder. Yes, of course, yes! As Julian slipped the ring on her finger, Piper threw her arms around both of them. We're going to be a family, a real family! We already were, Jenna said, tears streaming down her face, from the moment your dad stopped to help a stranger on the road. The wedding was small, perfect, in the botanical gardens, of course, with Piper as the world's most enthusiastic flower girl. Beth from Julian's office cried. Jenna's CEO friends looked bewildered but happy. Even Loretta sent a card with genuine congratulations. During the reception, Jenna pulled out two things, the old photo from the college party and the ECU umbrella. Our something old, she said. What's our something new? Jenna placed his hand on her stomach. Give it 7 months. Julian's eyes widened. Are you... surprised? Piper, who had been eavesdropping, shrieked with joy. Am I going to be a big sister?
The best big sister, Jenna confirmed. That night, as they danced under string lights with Piper between them, Julian thought about time, about chances missed and found, about a boy who gave away an umbrella and a girl who kept it, about how the most important moments of your life can look like nothing when they're happening. Thank you, he whispered in Jenna's ear.
If this story touched your heart, don't leave silently. Subscribe to Souls Connecting Tales and stay with us for more moments that remind us what it means to be human. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Your words might comfort someone who needs them more than you know. And if you felt even a spark of hope today, give this video a like, because sometimes a small act of support can change everything.